Welcome to the CDI CTO Podcast presented by CDI Studios.
All right, so to kick things off, I'm going to give you a softball. VMware's had CDI has had a very long history with VMware. We have employees that work at the company that were at the first VMworld, right? Way back in 2004, it was in San Diego. We've been calling it VMworld for a long time, and now this year, of course, was the first year we're calling it something different. So we're calling it VMware Explore. So can you talk about what went into the sort of the theme and the name change from VMworld to Explore?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say for those people who are joining back on the video, just so they know, we just went out and got a cocktail, so you better go get a cocktail. No, I think on the VMworld and Explore, it was a choice. We debated this last year towards as we were thinking about what we wanted to do with our events. First question was, do we bring back the events at all?
Yep.
Right? And we said no. Our customers, we've lost touch with customers, and customers had lost touch with us. And then we said, we had so many different events that were emerging. There were proposals that there were platform teams that needed its own event, and they didn't quite associate themselves with the infrastructure. And developers, which we have a relationship with through Spring, needed their own event. And so we decided that, no, it's time for us to create one event where two or three things fundamentally change. And it's going to be multiple years before that event truly takes shape in terms of how we envisioned it. Firstly, different audiences than who have traditionally come, which is VI admins that have usually been there, are invited. Okay, we did that. Actually, we were quite successful this time. Secondly, more independent content is available around cloud. We did that. Again, some success. There was a full day dedicated to AWS, Azure, and Google, and they ran their own unmoderated, uncontrolled content by us, similar to what you can expect at the RSA conference. So that's our goal, right? This goal is for us to make it so that when you or your teams are attending the VMware Explore, you're getting information that you won't get at any one conference because it's about multi-cloud. And multi-cloud is here. That's what you're going to have to face. And you're always going to need how to build and operate a single cloud, but you're also, more importantly, going to manage multi-cloud environment, develop for multi-cloud environment, secure multi-cloud environment. And the goal for VMware Explore is for that to be the center of your multi-cloud universe, if you may. And it's a big, audacious, hairy goal, whatever you call it, and it doesn't happen in 1 year. We know that,
Yep.
But we started the journey.
Well, it does seem it's interesting. There was a lot of commentary at the show. The number of people, I think, the number of people where it was their first VMware conference, right? Which I think is a great thing, right? It means you are reaching the other personas and the other types of people that you want at the show, the development community and all that stuff. So I think that was a big success from my point of view.
Yeah. Also, I think for the people who have lived and breathed VMware, it's a good thing. But at the same time, it is a little bit of an opportunity for them to diversify their skills.
Sure.
More than just managing virtualization. It's necessary.
Yep. So speaking of new personas, right? I think to your point, VMware sort of catered to the INO type of persona, the infrastructure and operations people, the VI admins, the network admin, the server admin, middleware teams, those types of groups. I think in a lot of cases in the development community specifically, there may still be a little bit of customer perception that VMware is sort of, I'll use the legacy word, right? It's the old way. How do you overcome that customer perception when people think VMs are like, oh, I've been building VMs since like 2005, right? And everything is about containers, and they may not be up to speed on a lot of the new messaging and the cross-cloud stuff and the Tanzu, innovations and all that stuff. with the name VM in the company, right? Sanjay used to joke about renaming the company Containerware or Container World. Could we see, just like Explore, could we see a branding change? Is that the right time with Broadcom? Like, could that happen? I don't know.
It's a good question. Originally, we haven't spent time with Broadcom on the naming. Broadcom thought VMware is a very, very, very important brand in the industry. So they decided, or at least at the time of the acquisition, shortly after when we had the conversations, they decided that VMware will be the brand and the operating model for all the software components of Broadcom now and in the future. If that, do we debate it again? We don't know. We haven't since then pursued any kind of a discussion with Hawk on that. I think more importantly, whether we change the brand name VMware or not, more importantly, I do think that one of the challenges we have run into because of the pandemic, and I think it's not just a loss to VMware, it's a loss to all of our customers, is that customers have a limited understanding of what they can get from VMware. VMware is a trusted partner. Many of the people that may be watching this have built their careers. They have a lot of passion, interest, relationships, and respect for VMware. And now VMware can enable them, just like they have done in the past, to empower technologies and solutions for not just traditional applications, which are well proven and already working on VMware infrastructure, but also modern applications, edge portfolio. And it's just an evolution where during pandemic, without having a constant touch, we've had a challenge.
Yep.
And the goal for this conversation is to remove the challenge for both parties so that you can leverage the best out of what VMware is delivering now.
Yeah, no, I think it's been amazing to see over the years the diversification of the portfolio and sort of embracing the public cloud ecosystem and all the things you're doing in the application space and a lot of the acquisitions you've made there. So, VMware has really broadened its horizons a lot over the years and is you see it in the conference. It's not just a virtualization conference anymore. It's so much more than that, which I think is timely at the name change. Talk a little bit about the multi-cloud sort of strategy. Like it's clear, it's all over the messaging. What is it about VMware and its position to help customers be successful with multi-cloud?
Yeah, I think customers, for sure, cloud democratizes development and innovation. And as Will talked about the fact that we are going with this digital smart organizations win in the future. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Different industries, different organizations have a different definition of what to digitize, whether it's customer experience, new digital offers, digitizing the supply chain, whatever it may be. But digital organizations or digital smart organizations win in the future. And cloud democratizes the development or enablement of digitization. That's what cloud does. The problem with democratization of the technology, which the last time we saw it was probably through x86, is that it creates very quickly chaos without any kind of a platform-centric control. Okay, without policies, without any kind of governance on how that democratization is applied, just like it is done, as with citizen services, it actually can create chaos. And our goal is to be that, again, neutral Switzerland entity to give our customers choice, flexibility, speed that cloud promises so that you can drive that innovation without the chaos. And we call that Cloud Smart, okay? Cloud Smart, where you pick what services run on which cloud without compromising the speed, without compromising your operations, without compromising integrity of your resiliency of the infrastructure or the applications. And it doesn't need to be runtime. This is the first time VMware has had this position. So it's important for you to know this. We're not saying you need VMware infrastructure for runtime. You don't have to abstract every cloud with our runtime infrastructure. You just have to think about abstracting from developer experience, how you're going to operationalize things, how you're going to secure your environment, how you're going to automate your environment, regardless of what you choose for runtime. Okay, that's our position now, because that's what's most practical in the world of cloud. Okay, so those are the two differences. Firstly, not just democratize or any hardware, which we have done in the past, right? Like you mentioned, we've always used abstraction for that. But abstraction in the past has always been runtime through virtual machines as a solution for VMware. And originally we thought, in full transparency, that we would want to do that with Kubernetes for containers as well. But we've learned that that would again go against the model of democratizing the whole enablement of cloud. So now we have said it could be any runtime, any Kubernetes on any cloud. What you really want to quote unquote abstract is how you're going to control it, how you're going to provide a developer experience that's agile, how you're going to make it resilient, secure. So having a platform that runs across this multi-cloud is the focused direction for VMware. Now, why VMware? Okay, why would you not build it yourself? The problem is it's not easy, and it takes up very expensive developer capacity from you. These are all open technologies. These are all modules that you can assemble yourself. But it's expensive not just from cost perspective, but from talent perspective. We have hundreds of engineers dedicated in building something built on open modules that make sure it works at scale, with partners such as CDI that ensure that it works. For customers, or for large majority of customers who are not someone like LinkedIn or Google, you can't build it yourself. It's impractical. So that's why you leverage technologies that get proven through leverage through multiple customers and through services from partners like CDI. So they just work for you with limited talent from your side booked into it. Okay, so that's our commitment and focus now for multi-cloud.
Yeah, and I think the runtime comment is key, right? We're seeing that in the product announcements. So Tanzu Application Platform supports runtimes like OpenShift, right? As an example, that was announced at the show, right? So it's in our view, right, steps in the right direction, where VMware is investing sort of further up the stack around how do I operate, how do I experience, all those types of things around the infrastructure. The choice without compromise, I think, is key.
Yeah.
So, we've heard similar messaging and strategy in the past. Like I'm going to go back to like the Paul Maritz days, like way back. And back then, even into Pat's leadership, a lot of the messaging was around, any app, any device, and any cloud, right? And now the strategy, it's sort of an evolved version of that, but it's still very similar, right? And I think some people might say, the vision back then was the right one, but just because it's the right one doesn't necessarily mean the timing is right for the market to consume it. So I guess the question is, with the strategy today, is the timing right, and what has changed now? Like, are customers really truly ready to sort of embrace this strategy and sort of go down the cloud smart and digital smart path?
I think there are a couple of things that have changed. One is on our observation on the customer's side. I think on the customer side, what we are seeing is often the big change is the customers have had experience with the cloud.
Yep.
They have built certain applications on the cloud. There has been an understanding of what it takes to build and operate an application on the cloud. There is no sort of disillusionment on what it means. Okay, that wasn't the case a few years ago. Secondly, there is also our disillusionment of our runtime abstraction for all applications is gone, right? We have embraced the idea that no, the cloud is about truly enablement and empowerment of developers to rapidly build applications. And the reality is, in the past, we said any app on any device, on any cloud, as long as it runs on VMware, right? So now what we are saying is, sure, you can be cloud smart, where you pick the applications that is best suited. If it's a traditional application that is making an updates at certain velocity, why would you put your expensive developer resources in refactoring it? Keep running it as an infrastructure that's proven, which is more secure, which is VMware infrastructure. If you're worried about talent, if you're worried about your data center, we have given you options to run it as a full service on any of your public cloud provider and choice of public cloud provider. Now, if you're thinking about modern applications, we would recommend don't lock yourself in so that you're building vertical stovepipes, as we talked about, for every cloud. Instead, think horizontally on how to enable the best dev experience, how to enable the best operating model, how to enable the best security. It won't cost you more. It will actually cost you less rather than just building up a stack with a single cloud provider. You'll be surprised how many modules and services you have to go assemble to operate a new application onto native cloud. Now you're getting that as a full-fledged solution that not just locks you into one cloud, but gives you flexibility onto multiple clouds. And that doesn't lock you in with our Kubernetes. So that's the difference, right? We have evolved our thinking, and customers have understood that it is not just all or nothing, one way or the other. The world is going to be, quote unquote, you can call it hybrid or multi-cloud for a long, long time.
Yeah, we agree for sure. How about some customer questions? Anybody out there with a question they want to ask Sumit?
All right, so I have a question as it relates to consumption, specifically to Tanzu. So from CDI's lens, I'm in CDI, and we're seeing a lot of success momentum with Tanzu, specifically in the enterprise space for our enterprise customers. I'd say commercial SMB type customers, they're looking for more of an as of service type model. We're looking at this multi-cloud type, view. Is there a plan or a roadmap for these customers in that commercial SMB space to consume Tanzu more in like a cloud type model, maybe via MSP, like a CDI or a hosted model or something along those lines?
Funny you asked the question. Will and I were discussing it earlier today, and I met with few customers, and just to be clear on the taxonomy, you can call it the size of the customers and call them anywhere, but any names. But commercial, as I think, Kyle, what you meant was customers maybe who don't have large teams of technical talents just because of their size. And the reality is that what we are seeing is that customers across all sizes are embracing native public cloud native technologies, Kubernetes. But it becomes even more challenging for them to put expensive resources in building out a Kubernetes operating sort of modules, structure, team, talent. And it's while they can embrace our products and solutions, implement them and run them, because much of these are cloud services. However, I think the role of our partners becomes even more important, either as providers who fully manage the life cycle of the operations, not just software, but just operations of Kubernetes, or continue to provide success and best practices services based on, again, the priorities and talent that the customers may have. I think that's just how it's going to work out, because there is not enough developer and talent that's graduating from schools to be able to be employed with all the demand that's out there. So there has to be a leveraged model. And I would encourage you to I know it will require a little bit more of a thinking on how to structure your cost models, and there will be barriers that come in. But I do think that's the strategic way of thinking about it, is how to enable agility, how to enable dev experience, where else to squeeze costs so that is not compromised, but doing it in a way so that you don't have a lock-in to any cloud. I would highly recommend that model. And then if you choose not to use VMware for that solution, choose something else, that's fine. And then I think relying upon a service provider that gives you that boost of skills and continuous supply of skills through learnings from multiple customers is the way to go, in my opinion, across many, many customers. Because there is no way in the open source world, the benefit of a closed world that VMware provide as an abstraction of infrastructure was you just had one thing to learn. Okay, and the thing that you had to learn, we could regulate the speed and pace of change because we knew you could only absorb so much. That's the truth. That's what we did. That's what you liked, and the world worked beautifully. However, in the world of cloud and open source, that's not going to happen. The pace of change will be far more than your ability to absorb. It's impossible for you, or most of you, to stay with it. Impossible. We can barely stay with it. Okay, so as a result, relying on someone who's staying with it is a very positive thing.
So it's a great question. And, I guess an observation I have that as the world sort of shifts more to this consumption model where everything is subscription versus perpetual, we are seeing customer buying patterns sort of gravitate more towards almost like a subscription model for service consumption as well, right? Where it's more predictable, it's delivered more as an OpEx, as opposed to more of like a product-based consumption model versus a project-based consumption model. And we think that trend is going to continue, and for the right-sized customer too, right? There's, different customers at different sizes and shapes will have, different tolerances for being able to attract and recruit and retain and build versus just consume or buy, right? So speaking of consumption, VMware is on a shift to be a SaaS-based. You're like probably over the hump now from perpetual to subscription. Can you share with us where you are along that journey? Like what percentage of the revenue, or however you want to classify it, but as you transition to a as a service SaaS-based company, how's that going?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unfortunate that software, we started the entire industry on the basis of any other hardware product, which probably started based on any other industrial engineering product. Like air conditionings were sold through a partner's network, and so did servers, and unfortunately software followed. That's exactly what happened. We know that, right? So the problem with the software world is that the life of a software is probably no more than days, unlike any of the hardware component, just because of the pace at which it changes once we provide to customers. And in the world of cyber security issues which occur in the software space, such as infrastructure, it's really just a matter of days. So then software models evolved to this thing called maintenance and updates, where we provide maintenance and updates as vendors and customers absorb it, and then life sort of went on. And even that's suboptimal, because what ended up happening as a result of just the economics of most companies was all kinds of funny enterprise agreements start putting in place, where you're buying software that you're never going to consume in the spirit of getting the best possible maintenance of software that you are consuming. And the economics are working in a very unhealthy fashion. I think subscription models eliminate that. It's a very healthy model in the ecosystem, because effectively you're going from all the risk that we place on the customers as a vendor once we have sold the product, with a gun on your head to some extent, to a shared risk model, where if you don't consume, we don't get paid after the renewal. So it's a very healthy model, keeping all the accounting side of it aside, which is just accountant rules that are barriers. I don't get them wrong, but I think in general it's a very healthy model, and it provides the best behavior in general, because we focus on adoption, consumption of our solutions by you. Okay, so what is the hump that I care about in the company is when 100% of our employees are focused on how you are being successful as customers in using our product. All other metrics are for shareholders, stakeholders, blah, blah, blah. Good, we track them, we report them, but in all honesty and candidness, the entire leadership team cares about how someone at VMware walks home with something that they really care about, which oftentimes is the paycheck, which is purely dependent on our customers becoming successful. And we are not there yet. Okay, I'll be the first one to say that we're not there yet. But we're making progress quarter after quarter, and every quarter or every 6 months as we operate our rhythm of the business, we keep changing policies and rules to make progress towards that objective.
So you went there. I had this question buried in the stack, but I'm gonna pull it up to the top. So you mentioned the shift of sort of consumption being top of mind, right? You can't make your customers successful unless the product is actually deployed and being used and delivering the value that the customer sort of set out to get from the beginning. How do partners and integrators play into that consumption strategy?
Yeah, big role. Listen, I think it comes back to the skill set question. While our goal is to always make the products as simple as possible, our sellers and our teams in front of customers to provide the required knowledge, expertise, but customers are going to need both services and help in implementing the product, and oftentimes expertise and guidance from using the product in the best way. And we can't do it without partners. It's just not, as a company, we're not set up to work. And that's okay. That's how the world and the entire experience works. And we're lucky to have partners who are committing their future with our technology strategy. And so we're very committed to building ecosystem. To be candid, we could be doing more than what we are doing, and we're only going to be doing more than what we are doing in making our ecosystem successful.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's shift direction a little bit, talk a little bit about ARIA, if you don't mind.
I love it.
I think a lot of people, when they saw the announcement, they thought, oh, this is just a new label on products that are already out there, right? ARIA Automation or ARIA Operations. And to some extent, there's a component of that announcement that is true. Part of it is a rebranding. But can you touch on some of the other innovations like Graph and ARIA Hub and explain ARIA, I guess, holistically, and some of the new components and not just the rebranding.
Yeah,
of
I think first
technology.
of all, let's look at the product, and then we can come back to name, because there's a lot of new stuff and there is some of the modernization of existing stuff. The new stuff, which is what is really exciting, is this thing called ARIA Graph, which is taking essentially using GraphQL technology to look at all the public cloud resources that you may be using. Think of it like a Google for your usage of cloud, where it'll essentially quickly take a track of everything that your company is using in public cloud to be able to run any query on it, not just for information perspective for cost and performance insights, but also to run automation. So to take specific actions through something called guardrails, where you can provision capacity or change the provisioning of the capacity based on what you're seeing in your environment, either for cost or performance. Okay, it's very unique. It's designed, I would say, predominantly for public cloud, because you can do most of that in private cloud using vRealize solutions. And you don't need that dynamic agility in private cloud per se anyways, because to some extent you've put all kinds of sort of ticket requests and service requests to provision new capacity. I would say get rid of it, but you've done all that anyways, okay? But in the world of cloud, again, democratization of building new applications, people are building new applications at the speed, or the developers are building new applications at the speed, and why they don't like your private cloud is because the ticketing system that you have in place. Okay, so in that world, the information just is not available for how to manage cost, how to manage security, how to manage performance, and how then to make some automated actions based on the guardrails that you have in place. And no ticketing system can be designed for that, none. Okay, that's what ARIA is designed to solve. Okay, so that you can code your policies rather than through tickets, through automation system. Now, second thing it does is it connects to your ecosystem of tools that you may have. Ecosystem of tools could be your Terraform for automation or doing provisioning as an example. And it also connects to ecosystem of private cloud automation, which is vRealize. Okay. Now, when we built this, it is a new interface, again, Google-like. You go in, you start with search, and you start putting in rules, just like you do with Google in the world of search. And you set up how you're going to operate with a lot of information coming from various different sources. And in that designing the product, we also took the opportunity to modernize the experience of vRealize so that it snaps in beautifully. It works with the same delegated access, delegated information control for how you're automating your private cloud. And when we did that, it was very difficult for us to keep the name of vRealize old because it just didn't fit in the console.
Sure.
Okay. So that's the backstory of why we decided to, while we were doing this, to also rename vRealize. The original goal was to introduce this new tooling for you to manage public and private cloud in the ways you could never do without old, outdated ticketing system. This is the new way that you have to embrace because any ticketing system is going to get ignored anyways, okay? And so that's your way to manage all your clouds, regardless of runtime, coming back to that. And then when your VMware is the runtime, now ARIA, other sort of things that you saw in the long list of ARIA announcements that we'll put up are to some extent a new minor versions or upgraded versions of vRealize portfolio that snaps into ARIA from experience perspective, from just not just UI, but also how it flows and how it works into the tooling. Okay, so that's the background of
Awesome.
the product.
Cool. Shifting gears again. So one of the things Raghu said in the keynote was we want to let developers be developers, right? And sort of let them live in their native habitat and do what they do best, right? Without getting wrapped up in all this toil and all these other things. So how does VMware win over the development community with Tanzu and just overall?
Yeah, I think what I have seen the best reactions for customers have been, and it does come in after first week or two of sort of getting used to things, is when our developers use our Tanzu portfolio, and there's just this sense of joy. Why? Because I've been a developer, okay? The world of developer is that you write code, you submit the code, and after that, there is someone who takes care of making that ready for production. And if something goes wrong, I am on the hook, okay? Sort of is the best way developers' mindset work because they're most optimized for writing code and writing a solution, not necessarily spending tons of time thinking about how the infrastructure will be provisioned, how the load will be balanced, what is the secure network, how will the things be networked. That's not how developers think. The problem when we instituted this cloud-first mentality was we shifted all the burden to developers. Two issues. One, that's not how they think. Second, each developer is thinking and dreaming and designing it their own way. What happens then? Any kind of an issue or problem means that you are now, some central team is finding which developer did what wrong in your company and that you may never find out. This is where you let developers be developers means let them do what they do best. They are the shortest skill set in this world. They are like oil, okay, in the economy. Let them do what they do best, write code, build a platform team that enables them to do so without letting them worry about infrastructure. That's our promise of Tanzu and ARIA. That's what we are focused on enabling in our solution portfolio, regardless of cloud.
How does open source, I think it's not widely understood how much VMware actually does for the open source community. Can you highlight some of that contribution and maybe articulate why it's important?
We've truly embraced open source in multiple ways. First of all, most of our Tanzu portfolio is productionizing open components. And it's important in today's world because, I would encourage, if I were you, to not go into proprietary solutions. So open technologies and open source, open modules is even better, so you can snap in what you need. And secondly, we contribute heavily to open solutions as well. Kubernetes in particular, we're the top 3 contributors to Kubernetes itself, which is an open source solution. So, and like Sanjay used to say, you may as well name the company Kubernetesware in terms of how much we, at this point in time, contribute to the Kubernetes stack. So it's a pretty key component of VMware solution of company as a whole. And it's almost something that is not new to us. It's woven into our fabric at this point in time.
Awesome. So at Explore, obviously tons of announcements. Is there one that sticks out to you that you're most proud of?
I think the one that I am probably most proud of is I think VMware has always provided new innovation in the entire ecosystem and the industry, and I think we're going to look back probably 18 months from now and be thinking that what is powering your data centers, whether it's in your data center, hosting providers or public clouds, and running your what you call maybe traditional workloads or VM workloads, will be very, very different than it is today. With vSphere 8, what we are doing with GPUs and DPUs, and whether it's Redis-based workloads that we have tested, which is rapidly caching, or big data and AI-based workloads, this whole ecosystem is fundamentally changing. Your future of data centers, whether it's again in your data centers or hosting data centers, is going to look very, very different, in my opinion. You can call it 18 months, 24 months down the road. And I'm very proud. That's sort of what VMware is about, just reinventing the industry itself. And that's what vSphere 8 is going to do. It will take time for the industry to develop because of just this major technologies in the world of silicon that are getting developed for the software. And some of the results that we have seen in terms of improvement in density and just standardization of workloads across a range of new servers at fraction of cost with these new DPUs is amazing. And so I'm very, very proud of that.
Awesome. How about one more customer question? Anybody out there?
The question was, where do you see DPUs fitting into the future? Like I mentioned, I think it's quite promising. It's early, but if we did some testing with Redis-based workloads, so if you're building new applications or more modern applications that require data and more sort of, just fast lookup for caching perspective, Redis is a great technology for that. There you're spending compute cycles for doing that work, and it's taking away from logic, other logic that you may have to, that's required for responsiveness to the end users. And we saw a significant boost. I remember the exact number, but it was between 25 to 30% of boost in user density by offloading some of that to DPU. Similarly, some of the network-centric workloads, at this point in time, if you haven't thought about east-west traffic and lateral security, in your own data center, and how potentially some intruder, which may already be in your network, sitting there observing every possible east-west traffic in your network, how you would put firewall rules that's built into the hypervisor itself, which we have implemented, that take up compute cycles, how DPUs can potentially help accelerate that significantly. Those are some of the significant value proposition that DPUs can provide with vSphere 8 and our sort of full VMware Cloud Foundation built on vSphere 8 over the course of next year or so.
Cool. Thank you, Kyle. Last question for me. So, of all the great things VMware does, right? Number one, I guess, are there any gaps? And if you had a blank checkbook and you could acquire anything to integrate into the portfolio, what would it be?
It's tough.
I mean, I think you'll see VMware probably, and this is something I can only comment, assuming we were standalone. I'm not quite sort of ready to be able to be commenting that in the context of potential change in ownership structure. If we were standalone, you would see VMware provide probably more innovations in the world of cloud native. The world of cloud native is a mess at this point in time. Just too many tools, very disjointed all the way in the software development lifecycle. And, we are committed into it at this point in time. We have poured in significant amount of R&D and done few acquisitions that we have been busy integrating in our portfolio. So we can't sort of just keep acquiring, because you will say at some point in time, what the heck, none of these are really coming together from a single company. So I think we are very close to, completing that mission of integrating the acquisitions we have done. And if we were standalone, we would do more to make the cloud native solutions for the multi-cloud world much simpler, easier for our customers.
It's a good answer. I mean, we agree the cloud native ecosystem is a mess. And just remember, it wasn't that long ago that the Kubernetes ecosystem was a mess. And look at what's happening. It's getting cleaned up with a lot of the things that VMware and others are doing. So that's great. Last call for any customer questions. Going once, twice. Okay. Well, Sumit, hey, we're just about out of time. I just want to say we've built a tremendous company, and it doesn't happen without partnerships like the one we have with VMware. We're very gracious for your time and your support of us, of CDI, and by extension of our customers as well. And we hope to see you again at a CDI event sometime soon.
Same for us. We can't build a company. The company consists of not just the technology, but the customers, and more importantly, partners make the customer successful. So thank you to CDI for doing that.
Awesome. Thank you for being here, and thanks to all the customers for being here as well. And we have apps, and we'll be mingling until about 7 o'clock or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, ish. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sumit. Round of applause for Sumit. Thank you. Thank you very much.
The CDI CTO Podcast is brought to you by CDI, hosted by Will Huber and produced by Alyssa Hall and Spencer Grogan. To learn more about CDI, you can visit cdillc.com. The CDI CTO Podcast is a production of CDI Studios.